So, there's a romance author who has some interesting stories. One might think, who the hell reads that? Well, lots of people. Hey, I'm Jay Nicole, a black romance author of 48 books, and I have a few tips I'd like to share with you. Things I've learned along my 10 years plus of writing. This author, the one with interesting stories, has found their audience. Better yet, they found their voice. As an author, finding your voice, defining what it is you want to write, will allow you to find the people who are waiting to read it. Romance as a genre is very large, with many authors and more books available to a reader at any given time. How does a reader know your work is what they're interested in? How do they know that one click in your title will leave them satisfied? It may not come with your first book or the first few, but eventually you should have a style that readers can attribute to you and only you. It'll give you the edge that will stand out in the sea of other books they could read at any given moment. Now, this isn't to say that they won't still read other authors or that they won't find new authors to enjoy, but it means that you're one that is tried and true, and they are committed to rocking with you. How do you know who your audience is? If you haven't watched it yet, Maxine's Baby is a good documentary to watch. It's a Tyler Perry documentary with lots of interesting takeaways in it. Kind of sad, but very interesting. One of the most intriguing tidbits I found was him taking his plays to the big screen. A man at the production company who he introduced his plays to that he wanted to turn into a movie, I think it was, I'm not gonna lie, I forgot which movie came first. But whatever movie it was, he wanted to bring it to the big screen. And the man at the production company had never heard of Tyler Perry. He asked around to his peers, and they had never heard of him either. But then he was in a meeting with staff members, some of which were black, and he asked there, does anyone know Tyler Perry? Have you heard of his work? Well, hands were raised. All the black people knew exactly who Tyler Perry was. They were very familiar with his work. So one thing Tyler Perry did very early on was define his audience. He found out early exactly who related to his work, and by knowing that, he was able to talk to that person in his work. So, what do you write is the first question. You may have to sit with this for a while and think about your stories and find a common thread that weaves amongst all of them, or a common thread of what you want to tell, and then figure out what type of stories do you tell with all of your writing. Who can relate to them? What other stories does this person read? What other authors does that person love? What shows do they watch? What movies are they playing? Are they paying to see? What does that person do in their spare time? So let's take me for example. Very early on, it took me a while to kind of identify what my writing style was, what type of books I wanted people to read, kind of the common theme throughout my books. But then I found that there are a couple of things that ring true to all of my books. The first thing that is even started with book one was that they are black characters. I loved reading black characters from the first time that they were introduced to me. I was like, I can relate to them, love it, check. Black characters will be in my books. The next thing is family dynamics. I'm writing romance, but there's always going to be families and their backgrounds in the story. So, like the mama, the daddy, siblings, a found family with their friends, but it's going to have that family unit. It's going to have a strong friendships. So, those bonds between the girlfriends, between the homeboys, that's going to be there too. One of the things that I have found more recently is that I like to have my hero or my heroine chasing their dreams and finding love along the way. So it's likely because I did not start off traditionally wanting to write. Writing kind of came along the way and was that one thing that I kept chasing until I got it. Now, I can't say that I was chasing my dream and finding love along the way because by the time I had started writing, I already fell in love with my husband and we were happily married. But it is one common thread through all of my stories. So that's one thing that if someone's picking up my book, they can get inspiration to like finding their dreams or chasing their dreams and not settling for whatever it is that life may be throwing them. And along the way, they can also find love. So that's one of the things that I've defined for my books. It's an exercise that kind of took hindsight, looking back through all of my stories that I had written or through some of the things I like to tell. And that's how I defined what my stories are about. So it's an exercise that you can do yourself in looking at your books or looking at your reviews to try to figure out what it is that readers are saying that they like about your work. And then you can kind of identify, is that something that you can relate to and want to continue with in further stories. Now, you may be thinking, well, that's kind of what we do for marketing, right? It's a marketing mindset. What does this have to do with finding my audience, and what does it have to do with writing my stories? But a book is difficult to write if you don't know your audience. Say, for instance, everything I just told you, I identified as what I write, but then the people I'm trying to market to don't like Black romance, or they like, fantasy. I can't market to them because they're not going to like my work. And before you write the first line of your book, you want to know who will want to read it. Because although you should write the story that's in your heart that you want to write, let's face it, if you want to sell that book, you need someone to read it, right? So you need to write with them in mind. And when you write the end of your story and it's time to market, you want to know that that person that you want to read it is lined up ready to buy it. And you have to sell to that person. So all the things I asked above about who you're selling to and what type of person they are, that will help you market to them. Then when they read your blurb and they read the first chapter of your book, they'll know like, aha, yeah, you're speaking to me. This is my vibe right here. And eventually they will hook into you and become a forever fan. They'll become that one-click reader for you. So, like I said from the beginning, you may look at some authors and think, who wants to read that? Someone does. And hopefully, for you, it's a lot of someone's. I hope this has been helpful. I feel like there's so much more that I can talk about on this topic. But if you have specific questions, drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching.